What's up, folks? Welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. This will make fluff tube. I'm with 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗹, the one and only 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗃, who changed the game of jiu-jitsu. I mean, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinions. I talked to BJ Penn extensively about you. I've talked to a lot of friends about you that are like jiu-jitsu fanatics. We now have a mutual friend in Scott Peters who's implemented that into his football regimen, offensive line coordinator, right? Is that what he is?
He's one of the offensive line coaches. Yes.
Yeah. So good. One of my best friends. I've known him for a long time, and now you're acquainted with him, and you're a big Browns fan, so that worked out. But first, folks, before we get into this, get your noble gold. No time like now to get gold. Geopolitical tensions are escalating. Inflation is raging despite what they say. Stocks are sinking. Debt is rising, and your own financial future isn't looking too good. Yet gold endures every crisis, wars, disasters. No calamity has beaten gold. While paper assets crash and burn, gold endures every time. You need to take a fresh look at gold, steadying your portfolio. And right now, get a free 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin when you open an IRA and Noble Gold Investments today. Shield your savings with Noble Gold Investments. NobleGoldInvestments.com. Hit the link below, folks, and get started. All right, Eddie. Man, so lots to talk about. We talked about a little bit before we went live about some of the things we're going to cover, and this guy's an interesting dude. And I'm sure everyone on YouTube knows who this guy is, but if my audience isn't acquainted with him, you can see him on Joe Rogan all the time. So, I mean, I know, you're black belt jiu-jitsu, but I guess black belt comedy too, man. You do a lot of stand-up comedy, right?
Not as much as a full-time comedian. I'm a part-time comedian. I go on the road once a month. I go to, I get a spot at the Comedy Store once a month. I don't have the time to be a full-time comic, man. I got a jiu-jitsu empire to run, and I got a family. My son's 11. He's all in the weekend baseball tournament. So, and I also promote a couple jiu-jitsu shows, Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds, Medusa, which is the female combat jiu-jitsu show. There's a lot of shit going on. So it's hard. There's no way I could ever be a full-time comic.
Yeah, but I've seen some of your stand-up. You're pretty damn good because stand-up involves timing. Everything's timing with jiu-jitsu, boxing. I understand timing from boxing. And I would imagine it's the same in stand-up, correct?
It's exactly the same. Stand-up comedy is just basically two things. Public speaking skills and being funny. And some people are funny, but they have no public speaking skills. That was me early, before jiu-jitsu. I had no public. I DJed at a strip club for 10 years, so I thought that was going to give me the public speaking skills that I needed, but it turns out it wasn't enough.
You were a strip club DJ, dog?
Yeah, dog, 10 years.
Holy, you were that guy. Give a hand for 𝗬𝗵𝗲𝗄𝗃.
Put those hands together for Candy.
Dude, you have the voice. No wonder. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's the fake DJ voice. The fake South Park fake DJ. All right, guys, put those hands. Oh. You know why they talk like that? It's because that tone is actually what cuts through all the noise. Like if you talk like you normally do on the mic at a strip club, nobody would be able to hear you. You have to like direct it and like it's goofy, but it's actually the only way you can talk on a mic and have people hear you.
But dude, it's like universal. Like every strip club has that guy. They all sound the same. It's like a grimy fucking voice, dude.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Makes you feel dirty, dude.
Totally. Those are some crazy times.
Dude, so let's talk about, I always tell people in boxing, I started boxing at 5 years old. And I always say, man, it takes at least, 6 to 8 years to be a good amateur. It takes even longer than that to be a good pro.
Yep.
Obviously,
that's the same all the way through jiu-jitsu, comedy. Most comedians say it takes 10 years to finally get it. That's the same with jiu-jitsu. Some people do it quicker, but the average to really understand comedy, 8 to 10 years. Same thing with jiu-jitsu, 8 to 10 years. Same thing with boxing, any sport really, unless you're some crazy prodigy.
And that happens. BJ was one of them, correct? BJ Penn.
Yeah. He got his black belt in like 3.5 years, won the world championship like that year. Yeah, there's exceptions.
So that guy's just an anomaly.
Yeah, BJ was when he was a white belt, everybody knew he was going to be a star. The guy was just incredible, just as a kid, just when he first started. Everybody on the West Coast jiu-jitsu scene was like, holy shit. Who he looked like he was 14, but he was really 18. The kid wrecking everybody. Yeah,
So is
yeah.
it so jujitsu? Do you have to have that fluidity, that timing, and that explosiveness all rolled up into one, right?
All of that, all of that. You could get away without explosiveness though in jiu-jitsu because it's a lot of it just clinching, So explosiveness does definitely help, but there's some guys that aren't explosive, but they're really good. They're just really good clinchers. They could clinch and hold you and control you, stay safe. Like in boxing, you
Yep.
clinch for defense. You know what I mean? For defense. Same thing for jiu-jitsu. But the ones who know how to clinch for defense and offense, those are the ones that don't necessarily rely on explosiveness. Because me, I'm not explosive at all. At all. I'm not fast. I'm slow. I'm just a really good clincher. And I know I can squeeze hard and immobilize people as my go-to strategy.
When I was boxing, I was real explosive. That's like the one thing I had. I was very explosive, and anytime they put me against a guy that had a lot of ring generalship and knew how to clinch, knew how to hold, knew all the tricks, the veteranos, I knew that I had to be even more explosive because they're usually the older, more savvy type guys that would, they were the journeymen that you could say. Is it the same thing in jiu-jitsu? How did you beat? Like, let's just talk about you for a second. Explain a little bit to the audience how big of a deal it was for you, an American kid, to go to ADCC Brazil. Correct? Did I say that right? ADCC Brazil.
Yes.
In 2003, folks, live on national TV and beat the best grappler on the planet at that time, Royler Gracie. Dude, this was huge. It was monumental for you, especially.
Yeah, it changed my life.
Yeah.
Changed my life, man. It was biggest upset in jiu-jitsu history.
Did you go in there? Day. Did you go in there? I mean, every time I've gone into a fight, there's always that unknown. You just don't know. You really don't know. You can feel confident.
I thought I was going to get killed. Because it was a 16-man tournament. So to win the whole thing, you have to win 4 matches. And I was a brown belt at the time. And everybody else is a black belt in there. There's like these black belt world champions. And I'm like, oh my God. But
how are you even competing against black belts if you're a brown belt? You were able to compete.
I won the trials. I won the North American trials. I earned the spot. So I won that. That was in October of 2002 in San Diego. And then May 2003, about 7 months later or so, that's when the big show was in Brazil. That was the main show. So I went there. I knew who was in it. Like these guys didn't have to qualify. I had to qualify. And I snuck in. I was just happy that I got a free trip to Brazil. I'm like, party. I heard so much. I had been there 3 years earlier too. My first time was in 2000.
And they're the best, right? Brazilian jiu-jitsu is known as top of the game, right?
It's as far as top of what game?
Jiu-jitsu, right? I mean, the Brazilians have it on lock, right? That's what I've always understood.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu.
Back then, maybe?
Brazilian jiu-jitsu is big in Brazil, but it's not like soccer or anything like that. It's not. It's like it's the history of jiu-jitsu, man, goes back 100 years in Brazil, and that timeline is fascinating with Helio and Carlos Gracie learning it like in 1920, and then them challenging back in the days in the 30s and 40s. 40s they took there wasn't that much happening in the 40s because of World War II, but the 20s, 30s, 50s it came back, 60s there was like UFC shit going on that we didn't know anything about. There was a Japanese fighter named Maeda. This was back in the turn of the century, like 1900. He would travel around the world in circuses. And back then, that's where people fought. They fought in circuses. They challenged people. And that was all over the world, traveling circuses. And there was always a guy that, you know, he's a badass fighter, and if you could beat him, you'd get like $5 or something.
Yeah.
Or they would just have featured matches. And this guy Maeda went all over the world. He was like before Rickson. Rickson wasn't even born. There's a Japanese guy named Maeda. He went all over the world, challenging everybody up. And he wasn't allowed to fight in Mexico. So he ended up wearing a mask. He's the one who invented the mascara for pro wrestling.
The lucha libre stuff.
He invented it. He's a Japanese guy because he wasn't allowed to fight. So he decided to disguise himself. And then he ended up settling down in Brazil and opening up schools in Brazil and teaching people in Brazil. And, you know, the Gracies weren't the only ones who learned it, but they were the ones that took it to, you know, the heights that it's at right now, man. So the story of Maeda, there's a movie coming out, man. My master, Jean-Jacques Machado, he's the guy who gave me my black belt. He was a consultant in this movie, and he's been working on it for the last, you know, couple of years. Movie on Maeda, and then it was supposed to be one movie about Maeda, and then Rickson, like both of them. But it was
like, is it going to be in a theater, or is it going to be like Netflix, or like, is this like, who's playing this guy?
I don't know. I don't know. You know, nowadays the movie business is almost non-existent. It's like, man, the movie theaters by my house, they're like, they're about to close down. Like no one's going.
And it's easier just to surf through the channels and get what you want on Netflix. And if it sucks, you just go to the next one. In a movie, you pay $20-$30 to get in there, and you're stuck.
People hate going to the movies with me, and that's why I ended up going to movies by myself a bunch of times because I cannot movie if, like, within the first 15-20 minutes, if I don't give a shit if these main characters die, if they don't make me care about these characters, I just get up and leave.
That's how I am, dude. If there's a movie that's, I'm like, oh, it's 2 hours long, I don't even go. I don't even risk it. I'm not going. I'm not doing it. I do go to the Alamo Draft House or whatever, and I'll like order food or whatever.
If the movie's good, you know, Scarface was 3 hours. If the movie's good, I'm down. But yeah.
So let's get back to this, because I really want to dive into this a little bit and get into like how you started and hit the scene. Because did you know Joe Rogan back then, or did you become become friends with Joe Rogan after you won the 2003 Jiu-Jitsu championship?
No. We were really good friends when that happened. So much that after the strip club, I quit my strip club job to be a comedy writer on the Man Show when Joe Rogan was the host.
No way.
And the only way I got that, I met Joe in jiu-jitsu. We were doing jiu-jitsu. He was a blue belt. I was a purple belt. This is 1997. This is way before that.
How good's Joe at jiu-jitsu?
He's one of my black belts. I ended up giving him a black belt, and he got a black belt in the gi and no gi.
Wow.
He's solid. Yeah. He hasn't trained in a while because he has back problems, but yeah, he's a beast, man. But his striking, dude, I don't know if you know anything about his striking, dude. I know it's hard to believe that dude, like, his striking is insane, dude. It's insane.
I didn't know that.
I'm telling you, man. It's like he hit hard, dude. At the first, I was giving him private lessons. I was a purple belt. He was a blue, and he wanted to learn some of my crazy shit. I went to his house, and he has like a heavy bag handle. And I'd done a little bit of striking. I did a little bit of karate. I did a little bit of Muay Thai, a little bit of Danny and Asana system. I did a little bit. So I knew, and I was a big boxing fan. I was a kickboxing fan way back in the day. So, you know, we would be in his garage and, you know, sitting there stretching out. Then he would just start wailing on the heavy bag. And he would throw this turning side kick on this heavy bag. And I was like, I'm like, is this normal? Because I try to do it. I try to kick it. And it was like a little boy compared to a grown ass Ray Lewis type of a man. You know what I mean? And I thought either I'm the worst kicker ever, or he's got like some crazy donkey kick. Like I couldn't understand. I didn't understand it. So then I thought there was a heavy bag at the jiu-jitsu gym. And back then, even today, but especially back then, jiu-jitsu was filled with a bunch of strikers who they were into martial arts, and then they saw Royce Gracie fight on the ground. And then they said, oh shit, I wanna do this. That's what I did. I was in the middle of karate. I had one green stripe on my white belt, in karate, and I saw the UFC, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the wrong shit. And then, so there's a bunch of those guys, a bunch of karate school owners that do jujitsu. And there was a heavy bag at the gym, and I wanted to compare, because I'm like, am I crazy, or is he sane? And I'm thought, okay, maybe there's a whole shitload of dudes like him. So then I would get guys. I go, hey, can you do there was this one guy owned a karate school, karate black belt. I don't know what degree, but a legit karate black belt who owned a school. And I said, can you do a turning sidekick on this real quick? And then he goes, sure. He did it. And I go, Joe, now you do it. And then Joe would do it. And that guy would go, oh, he would trip. He'd go, holy, it's crazy, right? He goes, yeah, that's insane. So then I did that. Then I started telling a bunch of people, like, dude, you're not going to believe this, but the Fear Factor guy is the hardest kicker pound for pound that I've ever seen. And people were like, what? The Fear Factor, Joe Rogan, fuck you. Nobody would believe me. Everybody thought I was crazy. So then I had GSP came to my class one day, and GSP has karate. He's a karate black belt. He was a karate man first. And I said, hey, watch Joe Rogan kick it, do a turning side kick and tell me what you think. And he said, okay. And I videotaped it. The video's on YouTube. You can watch it. GSP, arguably the greatest MMA fighter of all time. He's always in that conversation. And Joe started kicking the bag. And I have this on video. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. George St. Pierre, Joe Rogan sidekick. GSP loses his mind, and like he goes, wait, and he's like scrambling through his bag to get his phone because I got to videotape this. People aren't gonna believe me. He's freaking out. GSP,
wow,
the goat.
No shit.
And then from that point on, everybody knew that, holy shit. Not only does he throw turning side, and I always told you, I go, dude, do you have any footage of you doing this like in Taekwondo tournaments? And he goes, my mom has somewhere. I don't know. Maybe somewhere.
Oh, so he was originally Taekwondo.
Yes, that's where he learned. Yeah, that's where he learned the kicks from. He was competed in Taekwondo, and he said, he goes, dude, when I would land those things, and in Taekwondo, you're wearing like bulletproof vests. You know those bulletproof vests?
Yeah, the pads. I remember that.
The chest pads. He goes, dude, he would say, if I landed that thing, I didn't even look back. I just walked away. I knew nobody ever got up from that. Nobody, and even with the pad, and I'm like, shit, I wish I had some video of that. And he goes, I don't know, this was in the 80s and shit. And then one of his old teammates uploads it on YouTube. That's also on YouTube too. And it was like the video just like he described. It's like a 15-second video. He's like all packing helmets on and everything. And he throws a turning sidekick, levels the guy. The guy's flattened. And then Joe just walks away like it was nothing.
Like just turns and walks away, dog.
Like it was nothing. Like he said,
I just thought maybe he was a fan of MMA and he worked out, and because I saw his operation in Austin when I went with BJ, and I was like, damn, dude, this facility is nice. Like it had everything. So I didn't know. Who would know? You know what I mean? I didn't know.
Yeah, he competed in Taekwondo and then got into kickboxing. He did like smokers in kickboxing. He got into comedy. The comedy took off before the kickboxing did. And plus he didn't want to do it anyways. He was just like in sparring. He would like be concussed. He would have headaches, not my brain. So he wanted to he didn't see a future in kickboxing anyways. So then he was already doing comedy on the side, then his comedy. And then he was like, okay, see ya. But he never stopped training. He trains all the time. He trains striking all the time. He never stopped training.
But you say he has a bad back, or you have a bad back?
I have a bad back, and he has a bad back.
Yeah, I had back surgery. I had L4-L5-S1 fusion. That took me out forever. Like I was never the same. Never the same.
I have a disc replacement in my L5-S1, and they want to do another one on the L4 too. So my lower.
I'm done. There's no way I lost all mobilization. I lost my agility. It's just but I'm good with it now, dude. I'm like in my 40s. I'm like, I'm done with that abuse.
Yeah.
So would you say that fight catapulted you and your fighting philosophy? Your fighting philosophy into what the 10th planet jiu-jitsu concept is like? So, and I know you told me, but for the audience, 10th planet jiu-jitsu, what does that even mean? So a lot of people are going to be like,
some space mythical shit that I used to be into. It's like, supposedly
But
according
you're
to the
not
ancient.
anymore because you're a flat earther, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu was back when I was all into UFOs and ancient aliens, and I was all into that shit. And according to the ancient Sumerian text, if you there's this guy named 𝗧𝗵𝗲𝗁 who transcribed that. He was all up in ancient aliens on the History Channel, but he according to his transcriptions, there's a 10th planet in our solar system that's highly advanced, and they created us. They landed
The
on our planet,
Anunnaki.
all that. Yeah, Anunnaki shit. So I figured there's Japanese jiu-jitsu, there's Brazilian jiu-jitsu, 10th planet jiu-jitsu must be insane. Actually, that planet's called Nibiru. So I was going to call it Nibiru jiu-jitsu. Then Joe Rogan said, dude, that sounds stupid. Why don't you just call it 10th planet jiu-jitsu? And I'm like, nah, that's ridiculous. And then like 5 minutes later or a couple minutes later, I'm like, you know what? 10th planet, it is 10th planet. Holy shit. So Joe actually named it. But once
Because
I
it sounds like
figured
it's an outside force coming in, disrupting everything. That's how I take it.
Kind of. It's just really it's so advanced. This is the kind of, if they have jujitsu in the 10th planet, it would be like this. It would be super advanced. It's just some stupid shit. And I just ran with it.
So, so your philosophy of jiu-jitsu, how is it different from the Gracies? How were you able to beat the Gracies? Would you say, dude, like if you look back, would you say, be honest, would you say, shit, man, I guess I got kind of lucky? Or would you say your strategy, the skill set you had, was it different from what they were doing? Like, how'd you win? How did you pull that off?
Well, Royler Gracie had, been training since before he could walk. So he's been training his whole life in jiu-jitsu, and won the world championships in the gi and no gi. He fought MMA as well. And in ADCC, no one had ever scored a point on him. He won it the last 3 times. So he was coming in the favorite, obviously. No one ever even scored a point on him. And at that point, I had been training 9 years. So, but my training was specifically geared towards no gi. I was always the no gi guy in the gym. I didn't really like playing tug of war with jackets. I was like, I got into jiu-jitsu because of the UFC. The UFC didn't get me into jiu-jitsu. So I see jiu-jitsu in the UFC. Royce has a gi. So then I'm like, okay, I guess I got to wear a gi. And I realized, like, we're training in a gi, and all our techniques require grabbing the lapel or the sleeves and playing tug of war with the gi. Like, how does that translate to no gi? It didn't make any sense to me. So I was always working on a style that would work no gi and gi. And that really is a no gi style, because any no gi style will work with the gi, but no gi styles don't work no gi. So, or as efficiently. So then I just started working. I'd only been training 9 years, and he'd probably been training 30 years, but I was training specifically for no gi. And
so that was a disadvantage to him because he was gi.
He was mostly gi, but he also won ADCC 3 times in a row. So he was good no gi too. But every time every minute you spend training in the gi, you're not training no gi. So that's it was that first one, I was a brown belt, so my style wasn't even totally developed. Not even, it was like 30% developed at that time, but I was still able to beat him. So yeah, I got lucky too. On that one, I got lucky. But then in the rematch 11 years later, I was preparing for the rematch the whole time, training pure no gi. I knew we were going to rematch, and based on what he did to me, and he does the same thing to everybody. I mean, I still beat him. I submitted him, but he was winning most of the match, and
you beat him in the rematch.
Well, the rematch was set to be 20 minutes, and if there's no submission, no matter what happened in the match, it was considered a draw. So technically, in the rematch, I drew. But if you watch the match, I wrecked him. He just didn't tap. He had nothing. The first match, I tapped him, but the second match was a draw. I didn't tap him, but I did way better in the second one because I was all over him. I mean, I did a lot of shit to him, and he had nothing for me. He had no threats.
So what you didn't want to? I mean, you obviously were a fan of UFC. You didn't want to go into the UFC. Did you attempt it? Did you think about it? Were you like, I think I might take the next move and go into the UFC and fight, or were you just like, fuck, that ain't for me?
Well, that's a good question because my whole life I wanted to be a rock star. So I moved to Hollywood to be a rock star. I was only teaching jujitsu just until I blew up in the music business. So any job I did, whether it was a strip club DJ or writing comedy, it was all just a cool job until I blew up in music, right? So in my late 20s, I'm purple belt in jujitsu. I'm thinking, damn, man, if my naked, man, what am I going to do? So I thought, okay, if that 1 in a million chance I don't blow up in music, I got to have a backup plan. And the backup plan is going to be MMA. So that's what really pushed me into my style of really focusing on no-gi jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu that works when people are trying to strike against you. That particular style. My style is geared towards MMA. And so I was training for MMA just in case my back was against the wall and I had no other alternative. It wasn't like beast or like, dude, I'm on a mission. I'm champion of the world. There's nothing going to stop me. Watch me. I'm going to work my ass off. I wasn't that guy. I was like, I'm training my jiu-jitsu to be MMA ready just in case I had to do MMA.
But you didn't need any. You didn't need any of that shit because you won in 2003, right? It was 2003, yes. And then it just catapulted you into where? Like what? How did that transform?
I could just make money on jiu-jitsu. I could survive on jiu-jitsu.
So you decided like after that, okay, now I can what? Open schools. I can create.
No. Now I could teach because I started teaching jiu-jitsu like a few days after I got back from Brazil. I was working as a comedy writer when I was in Brazil, and when I got back, I quit because I hated the job. That's an hour story, but it sucked working for Comedy Central. It was horrible. So but I didn't have any alternative at that point because I quit the strip club DJ job and I can't go back. I shouldn't have quit that job. So when I tapped 𝗀𝗄𝗏 𝗏𝗏𝗏 out, I came back and I said, you know what? Now it's time to teach.
You made a huge name for yourself. That catapulted you into the spotlight, right? So everything kind of you wanted through music happened in jiu-jitsu on that one.
Yes. But still, even at that point, when I opened up my first jiu-jitsu school, it was like at a boxing gym. It wasn't like I signed a lease and opened up a school. And it was just a boxing gym that already existed. That the owner offered me before Brazil. He offered me a job there. I was a brown belt. He goes, hey, you want to teach jiu-jitsu here? It's a dirty little boxing gym in Hollywood called the Bomb Squad. And I'm like, nobody's going to, like, I declined because I didn't have any heat. And at that point, most Americans wanted to learn jiu-jitsu from Brazilians. They didn't want to learn from a Mexican. And I was like, I wouldn't learn jiu-jitsu. Wouldn't even do it. I wanted an authentic.
Dude, they wanted the authentic Brazilian.
So I declined that job. But mostly because I thought it would just fail. But then when I got back from Brazil, I went back and I said, hey, does the offer still stand? He said, hell yeah. So then I just started teaching at this boxing gym. First day, 18 people showed up. All the rejects from all the neglected rejects from other jiu-jitsu schools showed up. And I'm like, damn, this is. So even at that point, I go, oh shit, this is my new job, teaching jiu-jitsu. And even at that point, I thought, oh, this is a great job until I blow up in music. It was still that way. This was just going to be temporary until I took over the music business. And then happened, thank God. Because
dog.
Yeah, thank God my music sucks, dog. Thank God.
Dude, let's talk about boxing for a moment. I want to really get your perspective on this because you said yourself that you were a huge boxing fanatic. You really loved boxing back in its heyday, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, until UFC came along. I feel UFC, everyone says, oh, they can coexist. I'm like, I used to think that. But now I don't think that anymore. And believe me, I love boxing. That's my first love, right? But the way I see it now, especially the pulse of boxing has always been the heavyweight division, always been the heavyweight division. And what I feel just happened is the nail has just been put in the coffin of boxing. And for me to say that as a heavyweight prior champion, I was an undefeated contender. For me to say that is a lot, bro. I think Tyson Fury, and I want to get your opinion on this. The elephant in the room right now is Francis Ngannou. He went in there, and in my mind, and in everyone's mind that watched that fight, you know, Tyson Fury went to go handpick somebody out of MMA. Probably didn't take him as serious as he should have. But in my mind, he ruined boxing. He destroyed it right there that night. Francis Ngannou beat him, okay? And I believe that. I know what I saw, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due. Do you think boxing can still coexist with MMA, or do you think it's done? Do you think Tyson Fury ended it?
I don't know. I don't know, because I haven't really been following boxing that much since the UFC, since '93.
Then that answers the question. That answers it right there.
I don't know. But I will say this, though. The heavyweight division over the last 5-6 years has made a comeback with Tyson Fury, with the Bronze Bomber, and Andy Ruiz. Is that his name?
Yeah, Andy Ruiz.
We got a Mexican in there. And then there's like 3 or 4 or 5 Tyson Fury. There's some guys now. It seems like I've said this like a year or 2 ago. I'm like, you know what? I think the boxing, the heavyweight division's looking interesting again. You know, but what happens is, the reason I kind of just dropped boxing and went to the UFC, because I didn't know there was that much involved in real fights. I thought a real fight was boxing. I thought that was a fight. I thought fighting on the ground. I wrestled and I would take people down. I didn't think that was considered real fighting. And when
back in the day, that's what it was. You were looked at as a schmuck. If you grabbed somebody and took them down, they would separate you in high school. When we'd go fight after school, they would separate us and we'd have to stand up again. That's just the way it was.
And I was like, I don't care. I don't have like this bad boy reputation to defend. I just want to survive fights. So I would double leg dudes and just hold them down. And then when I saw Royce do that, drag people down, I'm like, you could fight. I'm like, oh my God, I think I like this. I just had no idea. I had no idea there was like ground fighting existed. And I just fell in love with it. I'm like, oh my God, this is made for me.
No, but it works. It's what works.
Yeah.
Look, yeah. I think I told you this story when I was in high school. I fought with a wrestler, man, and he wasn't a jiu-jitsu guy or nothing, but he took me to the ground, but we both fell off a curb. And I got up faster than he did and cracked him in the face, and that was it. It was over. But he took me down. He successfully took me down, but we fell over a curb, which he got the shit into the stick on that one. But dude, that's how it was back in the day, you know. Like if we were to continue fighting on the ground, they would have separated us and made us stand back up again. That's how it was back in the '90s, early 2000s. But the Gracies transformed all that and made it look. Whatever works. It works. If you can beat a guy on the ground, you win. That's it.
Yeah, it's just the way I look at it is, what would you rather have, a Mercedes, brand new Mercedes, or a brand new Mercedes, brand new BMW, and a brand new Ferrari? What would you rather have?
Yeah, you have more in your repertoire.
Yeah. So when you're paying for entertainment, MMA has boxing. There's boxing. They're not taking away boxing. It has everything boxing has, but it also has kicks and fighting on the ground. Like, whoa, I'd rather have all that, you know what I mean, than just one little thing. You know what I mean? So, MMA's the best. MMA's
right. And I used to disagree with people like you all the time. And now I agree, because when I was fighting, you know, the hardest thing is when you're hurt and you're fighting, the first thing you do is clinch. You know, you try to hold on to the guy and try to survive. The ref comes and breaks you apart, and that's it. It's game over. If you're too hurt, they're out, right? So I would always see UFC as options to get out of that scenario, right? I'd look at everything as options, but now I see it differently. But I guess what I'm asking you is, do you think that this can coexist? I mean, the people that watch boxing, I think, are now 40 and up. I don't even know. They're the old school. I mean, they're watching the last superstar right now is Canelo. I mean, we maybe have Ryan Garcia coming up. You got heavyweight boxing, but what I'm saying is, how long do you see this coexisting? Do you see it coexisting forever? Do you think just boxing will disappear? And I think, the elephant in the room is Francis Ngannou?
Boxing will never disappear. There's room for rest. I mean, there's wrestling. Wrestling's never going to go anywhere. Jiu-jitsu's not going to go. Gi jiu-jitsu tournaments, that's the most boring shit ever. I'd rather watch boxing way more than gi jiu-jitsu. But that's never going to disappear. There's room for I mean, I'm all into combat jiu-jitsu. Combat jiu-jitsu is my favorite part of MMA. The ground with strikes. So I just concentrate to show just that. No striking, standing. We bring you down. We don't have stand-ups. We have get-downs. You could only be on your feet for a minute. You could wrestle for a minute. No striking at all. We just want you on the ground. Once you get on the ground, you could throw palm strikes and fucking break noses and break orbitals. That's what I like. So but MMA is the complete thing. I'm just doing my favorite part. You know what I mean? And just getting because sometimes you can watch 3 or 4 MMA fights and you don't see any ground fighting anymore. Now it's evolved into because it used to be really easy to take dudes down, take strikers down. Now everyone's hard to take down. Everyone's got their takedown defense on lock. So take hard, man. So UFC ends up turning into kickboxing with really good takedown defense. That's really what it is. And I think it all can coexist. But really, I see the future of boxing in bare knuckle boxing.
See, I understand. So when they wrap your hands in the dressing room, they'd wrap it like a cast, so you can deliver a much harder concussive blow, right? So when they would wrap my hands, it would be like surgical. I would be like, oh man, I'd hate to get hit by these. And bare knuckle, your hands break easier, and you don't have the impact you have cast, where you can
definitely,
No,
I get it, but you don't want to throw full power because you'll break your hand as much, but they still do, dude. And you look at the faces of these people, dude.
It's a longevity in this shit.
hey, they're the ones who chose to do it. You know what I mean? And we're paying for it. We're paying $60, $70.
So what I'm getting at, so UFC made you lose interest in boxing. What else made you lose interest in boxing? I think it became so political with all the organizations that, you got these guys cherry picking fighters now. I don't see that happening in UFC. Cherry picking fighters, putting a rehydration clause into these contracts to where, we're going to fight, but you come down 20 pounds to fight me, and then you can't go back up the day of the fight. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's cheating. It's cheating.
It's I could imagine because it's so old. I mean, it's got to be, and just the fact that it's like the number 1 sport, or it used to be, or it's a top sport in betting and the gambling. And once you add the betting and the gambling shit, and it's just one dude, like a football's harder to rig. It's hard to rig through the players. So football, the rigging's probably straight through the refs. Like the refs are just throwing flags at certain times and shit like that when they need to cover a spread. But with boxing or fighting, it's just one dude. But I think with the boxing too, it's they got the judges. I think the judges are the ones. I think the judges and the refs are the way fixes fights. That's what I think.
They buy off the judges. They buy off the referees. The fighters go in there and fight their hearts out. Like I always went in there. I never wanted to leave it up to the judges. I used to go in there and just seek and destroy and go home early. Yeah. But and that's I would never want to leave it into the judges' hands. But I don't know. I wanted to get your take on this because I know you're friends with Rogan, and I know didn't he have some beef with Fury recently? Like some shit where they're talking
with who?
With Tyson Fury.
You know what? I never heard of that. Really?
Yeah. Well, there was some shit that Tyson Fury was talking about Rogan, and then once Francis Ngannou did what he did against Fury, it looked to me like it was game on, and Joe Rogan did a whole show on like how Francis Ngannou just whooped that ass. So I'm just curious on your thoughts. I know you're like one of his best friends. So, and look, I've been out of boxing now for so long. I'm completely separated. It's like a marriage. I look at it now like I don't ever want to see that again.
I don't know anything about that Tyson Fury beef. I really don't. I'll ask him about it. I'm gonna
ask him about it. See, Nino wants to know what's his thought is on that, and I want to know his thoughts on where Ngannou goes from here because I know Rogan probably knows the guy. I'm curious what's the next move for Ngannou because just won the heavyweight championship of the world on a pro debut. Debut, it's unheard of. It's kind of like what you did with Gracie.
Yeah. I don't know what he's going to do, but I think he has a contract with PFL. I think PFL and Ngannou are going to do stuff. I think I just see, the headlines on Instagram. I don't know the inside scoop.
So see, that says a lot to me. You don't even pay attention to it anymore.
I don't. I barely pay attention to the UFC anymore, to tell you the truth, man. It's just, for me, it's just all combat jiu-jitsu, man. Because I'm in the business, so it's very interesting to me and intriguing to me what jiu-jitsu works when there's strikes involved. Because jiu-jitsu as a sport is huge without the strikes, and it evolves into all these weird, unrealistic situations in jiu-jitsu. You could say that a little bit about boxing, right? Like boxing, like the head movement or whatever, like, oh, you just get taken down, you can't do that, or you know what I mean? So it would be like a boxer who wanted to tweak boxing or only focus on the boxing that would work if someone's trying to take you down. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like if there was boxing, let's just say there was a boxing show where you could take a dude down and get points for the takedown. No fighting on the ground. No fighting on the ground. As soon as you get down, because they do that in Muay Thai and in some forms of kickboxing where they allow takedowns, but you can't. That is the best form of boxing, where you're boxing, but you're also prepared for some takedown defense. And, so that's how I look at combat jiu-jitsu. I'm like, jiu-jitsu is a beautiful thing, but if you're doing moves or relying on moves, real fight, that's not what I'm interested in. I'm only interested in jiu-jitsu that works with strikes.
I'm wondering, I know we have we have a mutual friend in Scott Peters, and I'm wondering, did you see how he's implemented this into football?
We talked about it extensively, man. And he's the offensive lines coach for the Cleveland Browns, and Sports Illustrated did an article on him on NFL using jiu-jitsu and wrestling techniques to help offensive linemen. I think a defensive player should be wrestling. They all should be wrestling. Think about this. Ray Lewis, greatest linebacker of all time, he was a high school wrestling champion. Micah Parsons, right now considered the best linebacker in the game. He was a high school prodigy, he was a wrestling prodigy, a youth wrestling prodigy. Then he got into football. But the point is, football is all about balance and tackling and taking people down and not letting people block you. You know what I mean? That's wrestling. That's wrestling. 100%. I would, if I owned an NFL, well, I wouldn't be able to own an NFL team. If I owned like a USFL team, I would recruit wrestlers. I would just go to the high school wrestling team and just bring in all the wrestlers and make my whole defensive team, all my linebackers, everybody, all wrestlers, right? And if you didn't wrestle in high school, I would have a wrestling program during training camp, because the way jiu-jitsu guys look at wrestling is the same way. Like, we have a guy come in, a brand new guy, and he said, "Oh, I wrestled in high school and college." Already, we're like, "Oh my God, this guy's gonna be good." Like, we look at guys like most of the high level jiu-jitsu guys in the United States come from a wrestling background. This huge advantage, huge. When you wrestled your whole life and then you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu, that's another level. That's a whole nother animal. And that's how I would look at it in football too. Football, shit. If you wrestle, shit. I mean, I can't imagine you're a quarterback and
but then again, speed has to play into this also. You got to be fast. You got to be able to get to the guy to be able to get him down.
Totally. So those guys that are super fast and they didn't wrestle, you get them on wrestling right away. But I'm sure there's a whole shitload of wrestlers. There's lightweights. There's little guys. Like cornerback size. They're probably look what happens. Look what happens with world-class sprinters that try to do NFL. It doesn't work that well.
No, it doesn't.
We had a guy on the Browns, Anthony Schwartz. They drafted him. He was a sprinter, fastest guy. He was like running 4.140s and shit. And dude couldn't hold on to a ball. Dude couldn't run a route. Dude couldn't catch. You know what I mean? So speed is important for sure. But man, I think wrestling on the defensive end, especially, and the offensive linemen, they don't need to do they don't need to take anybody down. So they would need to do just focus on sumo wrestling. Like all the offensive linemen, I would get them on sumo wrestling on the daily. You know what I mean?
Dude, this concept, it makes complete sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Wrestling is the art of balance and taking people down. That's football. Football is like team wrestling. And then you look, dude, there's a list of like all the highest level linebackers. Most of them wrestled in high school or in junior high. That's huge. That's a huge base.
That is. I'm going to keep you for a little bit longer, dude. I want to ask you some things real quick about, guys. So I wanted to touch on this just a little bit, man. We'll just switch gears just real quick. So you were all into, that's where you got the name for the jiu-jitsu schooling is 10th Planet. So what made you shift from Nibiru, outer space?
No idea. I had DVDs, every space documentary you could think of, all the space series, the universe, with 11 episodes, 11 DVDs, the BBC, the solar system, the sun, the galaxy, space, everything I watched over and over and over again in my 30s. I'm a grown-ass man. I wanted to be that guy that could tell you, be at a party and can talk about neutron stars and how far away they are and super hypernovas. I wanted to be that space expert. But I never believed we went to the moon. I was like, oh, that's bullshit. Oh, no, I believe in
right
space.
off the bat.
I believe in space, but I'm like, I never bought the moon shit. Maybe as a kid I did, but like once I was old enough to think for myself, I was like, we did not go to the moon. And I thought, NASA's job was the moon missions. That's what I thought NASA was. NASA was the moon. So I didn't believe NASA. They faked the moon missions. But I didn't think like everything, all space information came from NASA. I didn't even put that together. I just thought space information comes from everybody. It's so obvious, space, planets. And then one of my students came up to me one day in the middle of like a 9/11, rabbit hole discussion. And he goes, hey, you ever look into flat Earth? And right there, I felt like I lost a soldier. I'm like, oh my. And on Joe Rogan's podcast once, a long time ago, Joe was talking about how stupid something was and how what stupid things people will believe. And he goes, yeah, dude. And there's people out there who still think the Earth's flat. And I remember going, what? There are? What? And I'm a grown-ass man. I'm like 40 saying shit like that. And he goes, no, dude, there's people that think the world is flat. I'm like, come on, dog. I couldn't believe it. And then my student comes up to me and asks me, dude, you ever look into it? And I'm like, dude, I felt like I really lost a brother. And I'm like, I can't ever talk to you again. And then a few months later, another guy in class, a guy named Ernest. First guy's name was Manny. Second guy's name Ernest. Ernest sitting against the wall in between rows goes, hey man, you ever look into flat Earth? And I'm like, oh my God, not this shit again. And I'm super at this point. And he goes, hey, listen, I got a master's in engineering. You need to look at it. You look into it. And I'm like, Earth from space, dog. I got it on my phone. Remember the iPhone default setting?
Yes.
The picture of Earth from space. And I you see it around, dog. I see it every day. And then I went home and I'm like, just going to Google pictures of Earth from space. That's what he told me. He goes, go Google that and then find some pictures. I go, I will. And I was going to text him all the ones I found. But then when I looked at him, he's like, damn, he may be right. These all look CGI-ish. These guys. And then I scroll and I'm like, what?
That's what got pictures, man. They're all CGI.
No. And all those DVDs and documentaries of space, it's all CGI. They never showed you like actual shit. And then once I started clicking on the pictures and they would all send me to nasa.gov. I'm like, wait, these are all come from moon missions. And then I realized, oh my God, NASA controls all of this space shit. Oh shit. Then that's when I knew. I'm like, and then you find out that NASA admits that the pictures aren't real. They admit it. They go,
they lost the footage. They lost the footage to the moon landing. How do you lose the footage to the moon landing?
Yeah, exactly.
You see that?
Exactly.
You hear about that?
So they say, yeah, they lost everything. Like 17,000 hours of telemetry data or whatever, something like that. And then they lost it all. But the crazy thing is they say, yeah, all these pictures are CGI composites because they have to be, because we take strips of data and then we got to stitch it together, and then we get a CGI artist to make his own rendition of it. And they go, but there is one real picture from Earth, and that's the one that Neil Armstrong or Buzz Aldrin took from the moon. I go, oh, so you got one real one taken from the moon, but you guys faked that. So you're all full of shit. So at that point, I was like, oh my God, I got to look into this flat Earth shit. And the more you look into it, like a detective, it's no one ever goes flat and goes back to the ball. No one ever. There's
Dude,
never
you can, I can't say, and I'm not going to go full retard on this. I'm not going to say, oh, it's all flat. I fucking, I just don't know. I just say, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. I've never been up there, but I know one with Elon Musk, right? Going into this SpaceX launch. Okay. Before it even was launched, I was on my podcast and I was like, it's going to fail. I just feel it. It's going to fail. So my question to you is, and it did fail. It failed. Oh, we exploded the rocket because we detonated it because we just felt like we needed to. Like, what the fuck? Come on. So what's your thoughts on that? Did you watch that SpaceX launch, and do you believe there's
Isn't there a bunch of SpaceX launches though?
Well, this last one was supposed to go in, 33 rocket engines, 33, go into space, and bro, it doesn't make it. It explodes. And they said, well, we did that on purpose. My question to you is, it looks like, if you see, there's other videos floating around where it looks like, to me, it punctured some kind of saline bag, like some kind of firmament, bro. It's what it looks like. I didn't see any black smoke. I didn't see any shit fall out of the sky. It went through something that it looked like water. Did you see this?
Yeah, all the stars, when you look at stars through a telescope, they look like you're underwater, and there's like, if there was lights outside of a pool and you go under the water and look up at the lights through the water, that's what stars look like under telescopes. People are like, oh, you don't even know what stars look like under telescopes. It looks like a light through water. That's what it looks like. It doesn't look like it's round at all. No stars look round or like a ball at all. They look like some electromagnetic pulse going
and then during the day, the sky is completely blue like the ocean.
That's a trip. Yeah, that's a trip, right?
And then how's the moon and the sun the same?
I know you're not 100% in on flat Earth, but I'll give you a little statistic that 100% of the people that said that you don't want to, 100% will eventually admit it.
Dude, I
eventually you will. You know how many podcast hosts have went through their flat Earth revelation during filming podcasts, little by little. They talk about it just like you, just little by little.
Well, I believe in densities, right? And I believe we're vibrating at a certain density. I think this is there's levels to this. That's what gravity is. It's a certain density. We're in this third dimensional density. And I think the higher you go, obviously, the higher the vibration or the higher the density. And I think the firmament there is to keep us in this three-dimensional density. Do you get what I'm saying? So what do you think's outside the firmament? What do you think's outside of this, whatever that is?
We're in a lake, and the shoreline to this
like
lake,
a bowl.
We're in it. It's like, I don't know. This is me guessing. Based on what I've seen, and there's a bunch of lakes, dog. They're all over the place. This is just Earth Lake. And we're surrounded by an ice wall. And there's plenty of video of it. There's plenty. You can go on YouTube and watch plenty of video of an ice wall. Bitch, that ain't no iceberg. That's an ice wall that goes on for miles and miles. We're surrounded. We're in a lake. And there's like an island and islands in a lake. And we're just one of the islands in this gigantic lake. The sun and the moon are really close to us. The sun's not 93 million miles away. The sun is very close, and it goes around us. It hovers around us, and it appears that it's setting, but the sun is not setting. It's just going so far away you can't see it. We're in a lake, and there's a bunch of lakes, dude.
So what's your explanation for aliens? I mean, are you going back? So me, it would have seemed to me that it would take you, for me, in my awakening process, I left the Bible and I find myself doing, going through my awakening, extraterrestrials, Nibiru, the whole thing. And now I'm going right back to the Bible. Yeah. Like, what's happening?
At the end of the rabbit hole, the deepest rabbit hole is God. That's what happens. Everyone finds God. Everyone, Everyone's has their different religions. They call God whatever, but the deeper you go down the rabbit hole, the more the bigger the chance you're going to find God. You know, I believe in God. I don't know what religion is the right religion out there, everyone's saying, but the one thing that they all say is that there is an almighty God that somehow is in charge and created this. Who knows? Like,
have you heard? There's a guy I just had on, Joel. I forget his last name, but my audience will put it in the chat. He talks about abductions, right? And that the one main evidence he has that's documented, it's 600 cases of testimonies of stopping an alien abduction, was in the name of Jesus Christ. And it stopped them immediately, and they never happened again. In the name, that's the only way to stop them. That and this guy's part of MUFON. He goes to the UFO seminars, whatever, and he says that on record, the only way to stop them is through Jesus Christ. What's your thoughts on that? If that's true,
I don't know. I believe a lot of the aliens, and they drag them in and they make them think. They want people to believe in aliens. They want it because their last card to play is going to be the fake alien invasion. That's
Boom.
That's the last one. So they need everyone to believe in aliens, to believe we're on a ball, infinite space, flying saucers. Aliens are going to attack. That's what they want.
Which is why they had ancient aliens on for a decade. They were conditioning the public.
Star Trek, Star Wars, E.T., all that, Interstellar. They greenlight anything that has anything to do with space. They greenlight it, even if the plot isn't necessarily a pro agenda, pro 2030 agenda or whatever. Even if it isn't, as long as the backdrop is space and ball planets floating, that's good enough for them. It would be great if they get a space movie with, you know, some New World Order agenda in there, which I think Star Wars kind of is. You know, that has a new, like Lord of the Rings is 100%. The aliens are going to come get us if we don't unite. And in Lord of the Rings, the castles that didn't unite ran through them. So Lord of the Rings is like, we all need to unite against the aliens. That's all that is.
That's all predictive programming. Predictive programming.
Yep. We all need to unite against the evil aliens. That's
Eddie,
New
man,
World Order shit right there.
I won't take any more of your time, brother, man. It's been awesome talking to you, man. I appreciate you. So maybe I'll see you maybe I'll see you at a Browns game at some point.
Hell yeah, man. That'd be cool. The Browns game wasn't too thrilling Sunday though, but Joe Flacco looked good, man. He looked good. I'm not giving up on the Browns.
Were you on the field or were you up in the stands?
No, I was up in the stands. You know, yeah.
So Scott didn't bring you down on the field?
No, man, he's got a job to do. He's busy. He ain't gonna drag you down. You can't be doing that kind of shit. You'd get fired.
No,
you'd get fired. I had tickets. I had tickets for like $6.
And that's your game. That's your team, the Browns. That's your
Cleveland Browns, dog.
But you probably see my team's the Dallas Cowboys, but you probably hate the Dallas Cowboys.
I don't really give a shit about them. They're on the NFC. They're on the other side. I like Dak Prescott. He looks good. CeeDee Lamb looks good. You know what I mean? But Micah Parsons, like I mentioned earlier, I pay attention, but I just, the teams I hate are teams in the AFC North, like you know, the Steelers and the Bengals.
Hey, Eddie, thank you, man. Thanks for coming on my show, brother.
I appreciate it, man.
Let's stay in touch, bro.
We'll do part two on my show sometime soon.
Let's do it, my man. Oh yeah, where do people find you? Where is your show?
I just dropped. You know what? I never gave up on music. I never stopped writing music. I just dropped a new album. The band's called 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗹𝗆, and the album's called Jar of Lies, and you could find that on Jar of Lies. It's kind of like it's a
Alice in Chains.
Exactly, a Jar of Lies. The album cover is the same album cover, except that kid has a mask on, and instead of having a jar of flies, so it's like it's a tribute to Alice in Chains. Because it's like usually I make serious hard music, and this is like a comedy parody album, but it's all acoustic and piano. So it's kind of like Alice in Chains. They were a heavy band, heavy grunge, with a lot of metal in them. But when they would do acoustic albums, they did Jar of Flies, that was acoustic, and they also did Sap, which was an acoustic album. So that's kind of a parody.
Were you heavy into the grunge scene and all that, or not really?
Dude, Alice in Chains is in my soul, dog. But
Dude,
I wasn't really that into like Nirvana and like Pearl Jam.
Nah,
But
darker. I like darker. I liked
Alice in
Nutshell.
Chains, Soundgarden, right?
Yes, yes.
Jesus Christ Pose. That's one of the greatest songs ever. Jesus Christ Pose.
Yeah, bro. I'm with you on that. I like Temple the Dog. I like Stone Temple Pilots was okay, but my favorite 90s band has to be Alice in Chains. I like Pearl Jam too, though. I do like Pearl Jam.
They were too light for me.
Really?
But you know what? Pearl Jam, I didn't really like any of their old stuff really at all. But that's the newer stuff. That song Breathe, Just Breathe.
Into the Wild soundtrack, right?
Yeah. I don't know what's it's on something, but it's a newer Pearl Jam. Everybody knows Just Breathe. That's a huge song. I like that one. That one's undeniable. And they have a newer song called The Fixer. That's a good song too.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, that's a good. It's like 10 years old, but new compared to like Rogan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that kid.
The song just,
one last thing, that kid, he passed away, man. The kid that was in the video, he like died of a surfing accident or something like just a few years ago. The original kid in the video, yeah.
That's crazy. How about the original kid on the cover of Nirvana's Nevermind, that little baby he's trying to sue them or something?
Really?
Something like that. Like that guy wants his money.
Dude, he's like 35 now. What is he like?
He's got to be like 30 something now.
Holy shit, bro. Anything can come back and bite you in the ass, dog. Anything. Eddie, thank you, my man. So where do people go, though? I mean, so they go to Hook Thieves, Jar of Lies. Where's your website? Where do they go on?
10thplanetjj.com.
10thplanetjj.com.
Yeah. And there's
text it to me, dude.
The single to the album is called 𝗀𝘂𝗿𝗲𝗄, and it's about it's sung through the eyes of a human smuggler through the border, the coyotes. So it's a joke song. But there's a music video too. You go on YouTube, Hook Thieves, 𝗀𝘂𝗍𝗄. It's a hilarious music video. Mike Beltran plays a MS-13 guy. We turned it into a John Wick video. I wanted to make sure the video had no message. Like you can't tell, like you don't know what, like is he pro this or pro? It's like it's just confusing on purpose.
I love it. Well, it's like a day in the life in El Paso, dog. Shit. All right, Eddie, let's keep in touch, brother. Text me that 10th Planet J. I want to make sure I got it right.
Okay, man. Thank you, dude. Appreciate you, man. Have a good day.
You too, bro.